Welcome, this is Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and joining me today is the UFC expert after his amazing, smashing debut on this show. We welcomed him back to break down another big UFC pay-per-view, which was fantastic, and I mean, a ton of different news happening right now as well with the UFC, with Fight Island and UFC 251 as well. It's, of course, my lovely cousin, Ryan Lucchesi. Ryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be back. I'm excited. Like you said, there's a lot to cover today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 250 was great last Saturday. And then, obviously, with Amanda Nunes and the whole men's bantamweight division getting shaken up. And then, I mean, this week they just kept dropping news and news. We got Stipe to talk about. We have 251 with 3 title fights to talk about. But we'll get into that a little bit later because I do want to start with the last pay-per-view we just watched, UFC 250. We'll definitely go through some of the main event fights themselves because they're all very interesting in very different ways, I would say. And obviously had big names. But let's start with the prelims a little bit. Was there a couple prelim fights that you took away with as being really important? I know there's a big middleweight fight that ended in the first round for... the worst part about this is these guys' names. Ian Heniskis?
Ian Heinisch?
Yes. That was a big win for him in a ranked middleweight fight. But what stood out to you when you were watching, getting ready for the rest of the big night?
Well, we'll start it off with the very first fight of the night, which was Herbert Burns against Evan Dunham. And Herbert is the younger brother of Gilbert Burns. And Herbert submitted Evan in 1 minute and 20 seconds with a rear naked choke. It was beautifully done, and the Burns brothers are just wizards when it comes to jiu-jitsu. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. I try not to bet against him or his brother anymore, because they're looking unstoppable right now. And moving on from that fight, we had another TKO stoppage due to leg kicks. Due to calf kicks. The second calf kick stoppage in 2 weeks. This was done by Alex Perez over Jussier Formiga. And these were just brutal leg kicks. It's painful watching them happen, and just seeing the life being sucked out of Jussier as he's in the first round. And every hit, he's wincing. And the final one wasn't even a huge blow. It was just the toes slapping against his shin, which can sometimes be the worst pain over shin to shin. But it took him out, and just seeing another TKO by leg kicks was pretty incredible, 2 weeks in a row. And then from there, the rest of the fights were good on the prelims, and as you mentioned, Ian Heinisch over Gerald Meerschaert with that beautiful TKO in just over a minute. That was awesome, and Ian actually has another fight in 2 or 3 more weeks. So it's good to see him staying active. That should be good to watch.
I was trying to figure out, because you could tell when Formiga falls, like, he doesn't fall necessarily, like when a guy's gets knocked out and his body says, nope, we're done, this is it. He falls in a conscious way, signaling like, nope, I'm done. So I thought he had blown out his knee or something like that, but I haven't seen anything about that. It's just that, I mean, the leg kicks were just too painful. Which, I mean, obviously you watch the fight, so like I remember that's how Adesanya retained the belt over Yoel Romero, basically in a very inactive fight, was just the fact that Yoel's legs were so swollen from all the leg kicks, and that's really become a new innovation in the arena, in the game. But I haven't seen something like that in the first round where it's like, yep, my legs are done, like, already. So did anything come out about an injury with him, or were they just from Perez, who's up to 4th now in the flyweight rankings? Was it just I guess just brutal leg kicks?
Yeah, no, it's just strictly leg kicks, nothing with the knee that I heard of, and these leg kicks have become more prominent over the past 2 years, and people are starting to add them as a real weapon into their arsenal. So yeah, it was just strictly calf kicks, that lower calf getting repetitively beat up by the other person's shin bone or foot, and it just wears on you. And eventually, I mean, you just lose control of the leg. It's your lead leg, so you can't put weight on it, which transfers into less power in your shots. Your punches, It's hard for you to kick. If you're a wrestler, it's going to make the takedowns even harder for you just because you can't get the momentum and the driving force off your lead leg that you would need. So they're a dominant weapon now, and people need to be able to check them and learn how to throw them because that's big, and it's ending fights as we've seen 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, that's just insane with that. So early prelims, obviously. One thing I do want to say, Cody Stamann, he beat Brian Kelleher, which I think since the pandemic, like, isn't this Kelleher's third fight already?
I'm not sure if it was his third or second. I definitely know it was his second. He got a knockout in his last fight. But yeah, this fight, Cody Stamann put on a good show. It was tough hearing about his story with losing his brother a week before the fight, his younger 18-year-old brother. But he came out there, and his nickname is the Spartan, and in true Spartan fashion, he got the finish. And I want to give him a shout-out because that's from Spartan, Michigan, over near Grand Rapids area. So a Michigan man, I'm from Ann Arbor. I got to be happy with that.
There you go. Always the Michigan man. It was Kelleher's third fight of the year, second since the pandemic. I was looking it up there.
That was his third of the year. I wonder if he was on that Brazil card, which took place with no audience either.
Let's see. I just had it pulled up. He was on the UFC 246, so the Conor card, and he got performance of the night that night.
That's the one he was on. All right, that makes sense. And then the other two pandemic ones.
Yeah, then Smith Teixeira, that one he was on as well. When he won both those, and then he lost this one in the unanimous decision. Stamann's up to 10th in the bantamweight rankings as well, so he's moving on up there. But everyone was talking about this Meg card, and it did not disappoint. We had, 5 very different fights, I would say. 4 of them were stopped, 3 of them were stopped. 2 of them went to decision, with one of them being a 5-round title fight. Your boy and Sean O'Malley, because whenever you did this with Drew Dober, who we now are aligned with that, I'm leaving Suga to you because you'll sometimes, like in the previous when I was first starting to get into this, you would highlight on these guys on the undercard, you'd be like, watch out for this guy, he's making a return or something like that. I'd be like, how do you know, like, these hundreds and hundreds of fighters? And then sure enough, that night, it was Sean O'Malley's first fight back, and he knocked him out in 30 seconds. And here again, Sean O'Malley returned stays undefeated, gets a knockout finish in round 1 over Eddie Wineland. And it was truly an amazing knockout. He was walking away as the guy was still falling. And I just could not believe that, believe watching that.
Well, one, thank you for giving me more credit than I deserve on the names I give out to you, because there's also a list of names you could mention that I've been completely wrong on. So, but thank you for acknowledging that I am right sometimes. Yeah, Sugar Sean O'Malley. I was not a fan of him when I first saw him. I didn't like his attitude and the fact that he calls himself the Sugar Show. But after watching his first fight, I got over that real quick, and I'm a fan of his. So sorry, Sean, that I was against you in the beginning. I'm on board now. And, yeah, his last fights have been great. This knockout over Eddie was fantastic. And as the commentators, Joe and DC, broke it down for us real well, it was a nice fake uppercut with a right-hand uppercut. He faked it, and then he threw a fake left jab, which that pulled Eddie's hands down, and then he blitzed him with just a straight right after the 2 fakes that put him out. And like you said, it was a walk-off KO. No need to hit them with the ground and pound. The ref was in there right away to stop it, to make sure Eddie didn't take any more damage. Clean. I don't even think Sean broke a sweat. He looked pretty dry in his post-fight interview with me.
Yeah, that's not what his last 2 fights this year have lasted 2 minutes and 20 seconds or so. That's, can't ask for a better return than that. Barely any damage, anything like that. And I know he was a big prospect reading up on him, and before his suspension, that ended up being, I don't want to say it wasn't real, but like it was an unwarranted suspension, I believe. And him coming back now, and he's now up to 15th now. He makes his debut, or I don't know debut, but he's in the bantamweight rankings now at number 15. So we'll have to see if he fights again this year to see where he could end up by the year's end.
Yeah, like you said, minimum damage, 2 minutes and 20 seconds, total cage time or around that mark. So I expect to see him back soon, hopefully. Yeah, it'd be great to see him fight again and just keep earning his way up in that bantamweight division, which this night was a night for bantamweights, and that division is alive and healthy and exciting.
Of course. And before we touch on the other two, I do want to highlight Neil Magny's fight at welterweight in a unanimous decision, dominating the fight in over Anthony Rocco Martin, in which now Neil Magny makes his debut in the rankings as well at 15 in a loaded welterweight division. So that is no small feat for him to be featured among the top 15 welterweights, or top 16, including the champion, welterweights in the UFC. What did you think of that fight?
That was a good fight. I was glad Magny won. He was my guy from the beginning of that fight, and it was good just to see him show up and get out there. He's always fun to watch. I enjoy watching him, and yeah, to see how he moves through this division and what happens, that's going to be exciting because that's another pretty stacked and active division. So we'll see where he moves from there and who his next fight's going to be against.
Yeah, because he's fought some of the bigger names in that division as well. Damian Maia, let's see, Rafael dos Anjos as well, Carlos Condit. So it should be interesting to see where he goes next. A lot of these guys too, where they go next, obviously with Fight Island being real and opening it up now. But the next, do you want to talk about Sterling or Cody Garbrandt next?
I just say we make our way to Sterling. We'll just go in order that the fights happen, which would be Sterling versus Sandhagen.
I don't want to say I was disappointed, but I was so excited for this fight, and the way Sterling, took his back and got his hooks in and started wrestling and tumbling on the ground. You knew it was over, 30 seconds in, just unless Sandhagen made a miraculous escape, which he did not. So I mean, it was obviously excellent jiu-jitsu and such from Aljamain, Sterling. But I don't know. I thought this one should have been the co-main. Obviously, I know Cody Garbrandt's a bigger name, but you have Sandhagen, who was the 4th ranked bantamweight coming in with the second ranked bantamweight in Sterling as well, and then it was the third to last fight, and it just ended in a minute and a half. What did you think about this one?
Well, yeah, this fight definitely could have been the co-main. The winner of this fight was going to get the unification belt title shot, and obviously Aljamain got that, so he should be next in line for the title shot. And yeah, Sandhagen, it's tough to watch him lose, but I'm a fan of Sterling. I listen to Matt Serra and Jim Norton's podcast, and Aljamain studies jiu-jitsu under Sarah BJJ, so I'm a fan of him that way, and it was great technique just to watch him work Sandhagen like that, and listening to him on a podcast interview that he did post-fight. He has so much confidence in his jiu-jitsu skills, and he knows that once he gets a hold of guys, they're not going to escape. So to see him get that first round under a minute and a half finish, it wasn't really surprising. It was exciting, and I'm glad we'll get to see him fight for the title.
Yeah, for sure. He picked up the performance of the night bonus, so he remains second in the division. I was surprised Sandhagen didn't drop too much. He's still at 4th, but yeah, I mean, for all accounts and purposes, right? He'll be fighting the winner of the Peter Yan and Jose Aldo fight coming up at 251. So that'll be interesting to see how that progresses for the bantamweight division to keep evolving, which is really crazy that it's been sped up so much. The band that is now right below Corey Sandhagen in the rankings, Cody Garbrandt. And trying to check back in with all the stuff, watching his fights against TJ Dillashaw, how he won the belt, how he lost it, it just the kind of figure he was before he took his long break. Cody Garbrandt seems like a very divisive figure in the UFC, and he was back in the Octagon, and man, did he perform well in that fight.
Yes, he came up, he showed out for everybody. and it was awesome. Like you said, he was kind of a divisive figure. He mentioned how that coming into this fight, it was all about his mindset. And it looks like he's got himself back on the right track in winning form. That was a beautiful last second knockout. Literally, it came, I think the bell rung right as Rafael Assunção hit the floor. So as late as he could get it in a round, it was a beautiful duck and that big whip right hook coming from his hip. It was gorgeous to watch. And I'm glad that he's back in the winning column. Once again, another guy that I'm not a huge fan of, but I was happy to see him win. And with everything happening in the bantamweight, I think he said that he wants a few more fights before he goes for a title fight just to get used to everything again. But we can see him back going for gold here soon.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching it, and the ref actually stepped in to call the end of the round, and then he called off the fight completely when he realized that Asensio was out completely, which is crazy because I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, that was as late of a knockout as you could get and still be within the parameters. I mean, his fist, Cody hits him just as the bell's ringing. Like I said, I think the bell rung right as Rafael hit the ground. So yeah, it was good. It was clean. I was actually kind of worried for a second that it was maybe late, but then watching the replay, because I was looking down at my phone right at the second that knockout ended, because I thought the round was over. So
right.
Mistake by me. Lesson learned: don't take your eyes off the action until the bell's rung.
Yeah, I don't know who Cody Garbrandt would fight next. I mean, like you said, it definitely makes sense that he would want to have a couple more fights, obviously, with his return, to get back into the, I guess, more swing of things. But, you know, because you look at the top of that division, I mean, Sterling just fought and is in line for a title fight. Jan and Jose Aldo are fighting for the title, the vacant title, UFC 251. Garbrandt's at 5. Sandhagen just fought as well. So unless they want to do something like that. Or then you have Marlon Morales, who's the number one contender, actually, which I always forget about, but he's up there. Or, you know, another fight against Pedro Munez, who he lost to recently in less than 2019. So it's such a weird and fluid thing with everybody fighting so often or so close to each other. But who would you put him against next if you were matchmaker?
Oh, that's rough. One, you mentioned the Marlon Moraes, and that fight would have to determine who gets the next shot at the title. I'm sure Cody would take it. So him versus Marlon would be good. I don't want to get too high on Sugar Sean over here because he's still at 15 and just cracked it. I mean, before this fight, Garbrandt was at 10. I think that would be an interesting matchup, but maybe in 2 or 3 more fights down the road. There's also Song Yadong, who's had a good come-up lately. So, and I know they're spaced far apart, but that top 8, top 10, everybody's kind of fought. So there's really nobody else within the top 10 currently that's readily available. So I think it would have to be Marlon, Song, or Sugar Sean. And any of those fights would make great fights.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So that division just, I know sometimes with the guys who weigh less, you know, it's a little tougher, especially, you know, the flyweight division we've seen has really taken a dive these past couple months. But, you know, bantamweight is still very exciting, even though Henry Cejudo looks like he might stay retired, at least for a little bit. So glad that we have all this, a lot of good contenders fighting for the right to be the champion right now. Last main event fight of the evening, Amanda Nunes. I mean, I didn't necessarily think anything was going to be happening that would be surprising, just because similar to the flyweight division, like I just mentioned in the men's side of things, the women's featherweight division, if you look at the UFC rankings, you know, you take a quick trip to UFC.com, there's nobody there other than Amanda Nunes. It's a relatively new division, of course, at 145 for the women, but Felicia Spencer was thought to maybe do some damage. She had previously had a good, solid fight with Chris Cyborg, who is one of the best featherweights of all time in the women's divisions. And Nunes just destroyed her, as Amanda Nunes does. And she is, I mean, I don't know. She's obviously the best female fighter of all time. Like, there's no debate with that. But I also think, if we're talking about the GOATs, and a lot of people, UFC's weird, where obviously you have a lot of different weight classes. So, like, we never saw GSP versus Anderson Silva, or et cetera. You can't have John Jones fight GSP, whatever. But, you have, like, George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, John Jones, and Amanda Nunes belongs right there, very clearly.
Oh, I 100% agree, absolutely. With everything she's done, anything she does from here on out is just history. And she's making it. She doesn't disappoint at all. I was kind of surprised that this fight didn't end with a quick knockout. But, I don't know. She just she used this fight to show off her skills in all aspects of the game. Striking, ground game, clinch work. We got to see a little bit of everything. And, yeah, it was just a dominant overall performance as expected by the Lioness herself.
Yeah, and I mean, Spencer was beat up, second round, and it was, I mean, at some point in the fourth round, you're just thinking, like, all right, well, unless, I mean, of course she had power to be able to possibly knock out Nunes, but she could not even touch her, so... And I mean, Nunes is just a monster, and she's only 32. So, and for a lot of athletes in sports, that's on the downside. And surely she's not at her athletic peak, but that's young in terms of UFC and mixed martial arts. So she'll be kicking it for a while for sure.
Yep. Hopefully she sticks around, and we get to see more of her.
So, and then next couple events, right? We've got some fight nights here that actually, I mean, obviously everyone's been waiting and such. We got some big names coming up tomorrow or today. I think I don't know when I'll put this out. Depends on what when you're listening. Jessica Ai is fighting Cynthia Calvillo, and actually I was just checking in on ESPN.com here. Jessica Ai missed weight.
I missed weight.
Yep.
Does it say by how much?
I'm on the article now. 126.25. Oh, so a quarter pound.
Wow. Okay, that's not extremely bad. I believe she still has to forfeit some of her percentage of her purse for a quarter pound, but at least she didn't miss it by 4 or 5 pounds.
Wow. Oh goodness, there's more. Okay, Carl Robertson fighting in the main event or co-main event. Middleweight fight, right?
Yes.
190.5.
What?
He missed it by 4.5.
Okay, sorry, this is live, so this is my live reaction. This is not something I knew about, so I'm a little bit taken back. They had this issue set up for their last fight with missing weight, and these two started going at each other yelling in a lobby because of missed weight. And here we are again. 4 pounds is a remarkable difference. That's 4 pounds he did not have to cut where Marvin did. That's 4 pounds of just sweat and energy that he has saved up, and he gets to refuel and bounce back. For missing 4 pounds, I hope Marvin Vettori wins that fight.
Yeah, it looks like Robertson's forfeiting 30% of his purse. And then there's another guy, Adashev. He missed it by 2.5 against Tyson Nam. So. Oh,
I'm not sure. Those are some names that I'm not too familiar with right there. But either way, I know it's tough, but you can't be missing weight like this. That's big. That's big weight to be missing.
Well, that gives us another, I don't want to say reason, but we were talking about this pre-show. If there's ever a fight card where, maybe you just want to kind of go out, do something else on a Saturday night with all these amazing fights coming up, this might be the card. This might be the card to go hang out with your family. And do it for.
Yep, go hang out with family or friends, a bonfire. You can get the updates on your phone. And, this card, it's going to be exciting. It's a UFC card. And just because the names aren't big doesn't mean there can't be knockouts. It's just not one that I'm fully getting up for. For
sure. But June 20th, week after, I want to build up here to 251 because this is going to be. We have Curtis Blades versus Alexander Volkov, a big fight in the heavyweight division. Also, some other names here: Raquel Pennington will be on that card in the women's bantamweight division in the main event. Roosevelt Roberts just had a great win a couple weeks ago over Brock Weaver, coming in on that main card as well. That one, certainly at least the main event, and also looking down at some of the other names on that card, looks good. Looks a lot better than this week's offering.
Oh, I'm looking at this card right now, and all these names to me are recognizable. Even on the prelim card, you have some good names. Austin Hubbard's a young guy. He's the first fight of the night. Roxanne Modafferi, I like her. You have Camacho versus Frivola. I see Clay the Carpenter Guida is going to be on this fight. He's exciting to watch. He's got a wild style. None of his fights are ever really boring. And then, yeah, as you said, you mentioned the main, and then the co-main has Josh Emmett for Shane Burgos in the featherweight division. Yeah, that's a good card. So, as we were saying, you can skip out on tomorrow's card, but make sure to come back on June 20th to tune in and watch these fights.
So, and then the week after, June 27th, which is my test date for the MCAT. So as soon as I'm pulling out of that, we will be here parked in front of the TV because the UFC decided to bless me with scheduling one of my boys in the main event in Dustin Poirier. I can't believe this is this is obviously with a bunch of stuff going on. I mean, this is one of the best headlining UFC on ESPN things I've seen.
Yeah, and we're on the June 27th card, you said, correct?
Yes, sorry. I know I'm skipping around here.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I see that the UFC website doesn't have it updated yet. So I went to UFC's Instagram to look at it. Yeah, Poirier versus Hooker. That will be awesome. We just saw Hooker defeat Paul Felder, which I was kind of sad about, but that's number 4 and 5 in the lightweight, or 3 and 5 in the lightweight division going against each other. That's some big implications right there. I like that. And then, wow, Mike Platinum Perry from Flint, Michigan versus Mickey Gall. That'll be a wild one. I can't imagine how that's going to go. That could be a fight of the night contender.
I love it.
Oh, we also have Ian Heinisch. There we go. Ian Heinisch, who we just previously talked about, taking on Allen. I saw Allen on the Contender Series. I'm not sure if this is... I think this will be his second UFC official fight. So that'll be another good fight to watch. Wow. Yeah, I'm looking at Aspen Ladd versus McMahon. Aspen Ladd's number 3 in the bantamweight division. I believe she's one of the youngest people on the UFC roster. And she's fun to watch. She's really good. Wow. Okay. Sorry, I'm just getting caught up on this card live as well again. That's why just kind of silent about it. But very cool. I love it. I love what I'm seeing.
It's going to be... I'm excited. You end up building up to, I believe it looks like, I don't know if they mean to, maybe they just haven't announced it yet, but it looks like at least there's a week in between that card, the Poirier card, and then the next pay-per-view, which it's crazy. UFC 251, first of all, is on an island. Fight Island is real. I know you and I were talking a couple weeks ago. We were speculating that perhaps they were just using it as leverage to get back to Las Vegas. They weren't. It's real. It's in the UAE. It's called YAS, Y-A-S Island, which is awesome. And yeah, it's just only the UFC obviously could pull off something like this. It's just fantastic because right now the issue with getting international fighters to come in and get work visas obviously is a problem because I guess the UFC isn't very high on the priority of the national government during a pandemic. I guess that makes a little bit of sense. Someone's going to aggregate that, and then I'm going to get yelled at by somebody for that can't recognize sarcasm. So Uncle Dana, built an island, probably got out there himself to go put up the Octagon, and this is happening now, and there's a ton of fights announced, which we'll get to in a second. But the fact that Fight Island is real, I mean, what was going through your mind when you heard that it was actually happening? Because I was stunned.
I was happy. We've been hearing the speculation of Fight Island for a while now, and knowing the UFC and Uncle Dana, how they run things around there, it's no surprise. I can't say I'm shocked that they have an island. This is great. They're doing it for the fighters. They're doing it for the fans. They're moving sports ahead, showing what can be done. And this is, I mean, the card is just stacked. This main card alone is ridiculous, with a couple championship fights on it. Other fights have championship implications. This is exciting. This is going to be worth the $62 or $65 pay-per-view purchase.
Oh yeah, normally I'll try to invite as many people over as possible to recoup some of the money. Obviously, as a college student, I know you were in my shoes once. And just try to do it that way and get some pizza, whatever else. This one I might invite like 3 people over and just be like, this is very exclusive. Look, you are expected not to talk too much. You are like this is not a hangout per se, as it is we are about to be treated to glory on the television screen for 6 hours.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is cell phones off. They go on silent. Don't talk. Just watch. But looking at these fights, I don't know what's going to happen, because a few of these, or one of these is a rematch. One of the title fights is a rematch that we've already seen before, and the way that last one went down was ridiculous. Yeah, this will absolutely be exciting, and I say make it an exclusive event for sure.
So one thing we do have to touch on before we talk about this card, based on who the main event is, being Gilbert Burns, is now all of a sudden fighting for a title, which is crazy. It'll be his 3rd fight of the year as well once this gets underway, is that he pummeled former champion Tyron Woodley. And I guess, I've heard of Woodley before, obviously, and I haven't seen him fight in a while. I didn't realize how great of a welterweight he really was, how many defenses, he had and stuff like that, how he rose up through the ranks, because I saw some people compare him in very favorable light to, not to being better than GSP, but being in there. He's in that sort of room with him, which, I was shocked to hear that. But obviously it's very clear that Woodley now, he's 38, and although that age sometimes doesn't mean the most, I remember I looked at it the next day. I rewatched it, and Woodley's body language was just terrible after he got rocked in the first round. I mean, it's almost in a 5-round fight. You get rocked in the first 20 seconds like Woodley did, and it's like, all right, well, it happens. We can get this back. But Woodley just looked out of the gas. And it seemed, and I mean, he is unanimous decision for Gilbert Burns, and great on Burns. He fought a spectacular fight, but the bigger takeaway for me is Woodley just didn't look like a fighter at all. And maybe I'm being too harsh, but what do you think? Yeah,
if you look at Woodley's career, with the exception of the last 2 fights, you understand why he was so dominant. And now you take into account these last 2 fights, you wouldn't think he was anybody. But Woodley, I don't know what's happening to him. He was talking about how for this fight, he went to Thailand, he focused and he centered himself, and he was ready for it. But then you saw him fight, like you said, his body language wasn't reading right. He just didn't look like he wanted to be in there. And I don't know if he's lost the drive and everything he says is just for ear candy for everybody to hear. But yeah, he just he's not looking like the Woodley that I've seen in the past, which is sad. Then again, he is 38 years old. He has a music career that he's also trying to focus on too. I'm not sure if he's just too spread out now, and if he has the championship capability and mentality that he used to. It doesn't look like it. Hopefully he has one more fight, and we'll see what happens then. If he gets, I say he has to end that fight. His next fight, he'll have to end it for us to believe there's still a spark in him and the motivation to keep going to chase that greatness and to be the chosen one, as his nickname states.
Yeah, and I saw an ESPN reporter speculating that he should next fight Robbie Lawler, another great former welterweight. Well, not former, he's still obviously ranked in the division at number 12, but it just shows that even though you would look at the rankings and see, Tyron Woodley at number 4 right now, that people below him like Leon Edwards, Wonderboy Thompson, Damian Maia are much closer to a title shot in terms of 1 win away than he is right now.
Yeah, I love Robbie Lawler, but I don't know if I don't know, that's 2 older vets going at it. I think it would be an exciting fight. I think it might be a retirement fight for one of them. I'd rather see him take on, I know he's already fought Stephen Thompson twice. I don't know. who his next fight should be against. I know there's a lot of issues going on right now with Masvidal. I'm not sure where Covington's at or how that's going to go down. I know that they had tried to piece together, and it's he said, she said about their past experiences and their past contracts, and he's scared to fight me, and then the other one says, no, he's scared to fight me, and I don't know who to believe in that or what's going to happen. I don't know who Woodley fights next. I'm looking at these, and I don't know. I'm not really excited right now for any of his potential opponents, actually. It's kind of sad saying it. It's weird.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what's going to happen with Woodley.
Right, for sure. But transitioning to Gilbert Burns, I mean, this man, he's now on a 6-win fight streak. He already beat Damian Maia in the last card before the pandemic in Brazil with a TKO, and then obviously with the win over Tyron Woodley, and he has launched himself to the number one contender in, like I said earlier, a loaded welterweight division, and he is now fighting for the title against champion Kamaru Usman for Usman's second title defense on July 11th. Wow. What a rise for Burns, and just I mean, we'll go through the rest of this card as well, but man, what a matchup.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting one. So we saw Kamaru absolutely work over Tyron Woodley with his wrestling. For 5 rounds, he smothered Woodley. Woodley, once again, didn't know what to do, had no drive, and couldn't escape Usman's wrestling. Then we see Kamaru defend his belt against Colby Covington in what was just a striking match the whole time. Both guys getting rocked. It was just chins of steel out there. It was nuts to watch. We've seen Gilbert in his last few fights knock out Maia. He just worked over Woodley for 5 rounds. So I don't know if these two guys are going to keep it striking or if one of them is going to go to the ground. Kamaru's strongest ground game is wrestling, where Gilbert has jiu-jitsu. So that would make an interesting matchup on the ground. And as far as striking goes, I want to give the slight edge to Kamaru, but I think Gilbert may have more power, though, than Kamaru, it looked like. So that'll be a banger, a barn burner, everything you want out of a fight, or it could end in under a minute. And still, that would be everything we want out of a fight, because that would mean a knockout or a tap out right there. So that's going to be exciting.
I still just can't get over the fact that in Usman's last fight, a win over Colby Covington, defending his belt, that he broke Covington's jaw, and you could see it on the video if you just slow it down even a little bit. I was not familiar with Kamaru Usman, who I know I wrote a piece for the website we have up, and one of the best nicknames. I mean, the Nigerian Nightmare is about as terrifying as you can make a nickname, and he's going to go for another 5 rounds or maybe less, like you said, with a dangerous man in Gilbert Burns, which would be a lot of fun for that division.
Yes, I love the nickname, the Nigerian Nightmare, and the last 2 fights I just talked about, watch him versus Woodley, watch him versus Usman. That's a nightmare. It's no cakewalk. It's not a happy place when you're in there with him. You probably just want to get out of that ring in that octagon and get the fight over with, and just as soon as you can. So yeah, that nickname fits him perfectly, and I'm just excited for that fight. It's just under a month away. So cool. All right, that one I got to keep calm about until then, but it's going to be hard to.
For sure. There's another title fight, the second of 3, that'll be taking place. Featherweight, Alexander Volkanovski will be defending his belt for the first time against the man he took it from, who dominated the featherweight division for so long, in Max Holloway. Which this is going to be. I did watch the first fight, not at the actual 245 when they fought, but afterwards on ESPN Plus, and wow, just wow! It's going to be awesome, because Holloway is one of the best featherweights I think I've seen. Let's see here. Let me try to count all these wins in a row. 3, 6, 9, 13 wins before losing to Dustin Poirier for the interim lightweight championship when he moved up for to challenge for that belt, and then beating Frankie Edgar after that, and losing to Volkanovski. I mean, this is going to be an absolute stunner as well as a fight. And the last one went 5 rounds, unanimous decision for Volkanovski when he really hurt Max Holloway, because Max Holloway is one of the longest guys in the division ever. I mean, that's what I take away when you watch him, because he's a tall, lanky featherweight, which you normally do not see. And I'm so excited. I haven't even gone back and done the prep yet for this kind of stuff, where you start watching these guys again and you start noticing little things. But man, I mean, remembering that first fight these two had, there's a lot of times when you get a title fight right, and then they run it back, and you're like, I'm not that excited about this. This is what I'm excited about. This is gonna be really fun.
This is another one. It's hard not to be excited. We saw the striking match that went down in their first fight, back and forth. Obviously, heavily dominated by Volkanovski. So I'm interested to see what Max's plan is, and Volkanovski's as well. I wonder if anybody's going to change it up and try to go to the ground, but Max has always been there with his striking. That's what allowed him to be so dominant in his division for such a long time. And I'm hoping to see him get the belt back. I just like his laid-back Hawaiian style. He is graceful in winning, graceful in losing, and he's just ready to come back at it, and I hope he can get the belt back. That'd be great to see. Volkanovski is a huge guy for that division. At one point, he weighed 225 pounds. So he has had heavier weight before. That was before he started fighting. That was during his rugby days. So he's just a big, strong featherweight. And the power he packs sets him apart. And that's probably why he's the champion right now. But now, having fought him once, I'm sure Max can get a better preparation, add some things in his camp that he was lacking for their last fight.
Right, yeah. Man, this is going to be such a great fight. I heard, too, that Cejudo might want to fight Volkanovski, and it's like, all right, you just retired, dude. Like, here we go again.
Yep.
With these fighters retiring, and then, I mean, I think Cejudo will sit out a little longer than most do, i.e. Conor McGregor. But, I mean, just hearing that again, it's like, all right, then what's really the point? Just say taking a break, I guess. But
yeah, it sounds like Cejudo's done with the bantamweight, and obviously the flyweight, that's kind of done itself. There's just nobody right there right now for him in the flyweight. I think he's scared. Well, I don't know if he's scared or not. I thought he was scared of maybe the other guys, Aljamain, Cody, Sandhagen, Piotr Jan, those guys who we're going to be seeing fight for a belt here shortly. I think he's scared of him, but now he's trying to call out Volkanovski and wants to go for a 3-weight belt. I don't see his moving up to featherweight being any good. I think that would be a bad move, but if the payday's right for him, I mean, it could bring anybody out of retirement.
Right, yeah, exactly. And speaking of that title in the bantamweight division, Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo. Peter Yan has earned this. He's been running his way through this division. I like Jose Aldo. You know, he's a legend, obviously, from this division and also the featherweight. We can both agree, though, that he probably doesn't deserve this title shot in front of other people who have already fought, though. Right?
It is an awkward situation because Aldo lost the decision to Marlon Moraes. And that was kind of sketchy. I actually thought Aldo should have won that fight, which then put him in contention to fight Cejudo. But that's already gone. That has passed. And yeah, now he's getting placed in here with Peter Yan and everything. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm still confused about it. If he wins, I guess obviously he deserves it. I just don't know. I think there was too many other names, as we've mentioned before, that should be getting the title fight and the chance. I don't know why. I think that's why they're not having Peter fight Marlon, is because the UFC themselves feel that the Marlon decision wasn't just for Jose. So maybe this is their way of trying to correct it, and if he wins, he gets the fight. Right.
Yeah, I mean, especially because, although doing most of his career at featherweight and then dropping down. And the Marlon Morales fight was his first fight down at bantamweight. So, I mean, we'll see if in his second he will be able to pull off the title and then take on Sterling. So that'll be interesting to watch, obviously. And I can't believe that's the third to last fight. That is so crazy. And then before that,
what big this card is.
I know we got two awesome women fights. Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas. Now, I didn't know anything about Thug Rose or Andrade.
Thug Rose, yes. Woo! Sorry for my excitement. Oh, I love Thug Rose. Yes, you're back.
I watched the first fight of these two, and I thought Thug Rose died because of the way she was slammed. Obviously, it was a knockout, but I mean, I think the way, I guess, to explain it, then I think Joe Rogan was explaining at the time, is that I don't know if it was a Kimura, but she was caught in something, and then she was getting Andrade has just raw power and picked her up, and Rose didn't turn to where she would land on her side or land on her back. She kept her hands locked in, and she landed on her neck. And just it was a TKO, and I could not believe that. One, that's legal. I guess it makes sense that it's legal, but also just the brutalness in that. I mean, she's back, and it's gonna be exciting. Rose, the former champion, of course, and then Andre took that from her, and now it's Honda Zhang Wei Li. So a crazy division as well. But this fight is exciting for sure.
Yes, and as you mentioned, she just got caught up in it. She was trying to sink that choke in, and then Andrade just used her strength, was able to lift her up, and during that slam, Rose tried to hold on to the choke instead of maneuvering her arms to get her body out of the way. And yeah, when the side of her head hit the ground, and you saw that neck crank the way it did, I thought she was dead. I don't know how she didn't suffer any major injuries, but I'm glad to see her back. She was dominating that whole fight. I thought it was a wrap. And then she just hung on to that choke when she shouldn't have. A simple mistake. She's admitted it. I've heard her. I remember listening to a podcast with her on it. And so she comes back, but she does everything the exact same way she did before, minus holding on to that choke a little too long. I see her walking away with the W.
Oh yeah, for sure. And obviously she was supposed to fight in UFC 249, but there were some family issues that occurred, so now it'll be good to have her back for this card for sure. And then in women's flyweight, Amanda Ribas versus Paige Van Zant. I can't say I've seen either of these two fight, but I mean, if it's on this card, it's got to be fantastic. And here I'm looking, and I do see that they are both in those rankings, so it should be a ton of fun for that as well.
Yeah, Paige Van Zant, she's been away for a while now. It's good to see her back. I don't know how long her layoff's actually been. It's definitely been a while. That should be exciting to watch. Happy to see her back. Amanda Ribas, I don't know what her latest fight has been. I know her name. I just can't seem to recall any of her last fights, but that'll be a good flyweight fight. It opens us up on the main card, and I think that's a great way to open up with those two ladies.
Right, for sure. And then looking here on the official Wikipedia page, obviously, the best, there's a Frankie Edgar has an announced fight at this card as well versus Pedro Munez. So that's something else to look forward to. As someone that if that's not on the main card, which right now it doesn't appear to be, they could change it. That's got to be the featured prelim, right, on ESPN to do that, to get people in, because Frankie Edgar is a well-known name in multiple divisions.
Oh, Frankie Edgar, he's been around the UFC for a while. I'm not sure if he still holds the record, but at one point he did have the record for the most fight time in the cage. He's just in dog fights, and he just goes and goes. He's durable, although we did see him get knocked out a few fights ago by Brian Ortega, which was a complete shock to see that. But besides that fight, he's just a durable human, a hell of a fighter. I hate to see him lose. He's just an OG in this, and he's been around such a long time. I did not know he was on that card. So that makes it even more exciting, as if this card wasn't already stacked enough in the main event. I don't know who else they're planning on putting on this card. But yeah, that should definitely be the feature prelim fight for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I would tell you who else is here listed, but it's a bunch of foreign names, obviously, to get some of these foreign fighters back in the card. Like, I literally, like, I'll send you a Volkan's on here at light heavyweight. I can say that. But other than that, these names are a little tough here. I'll screenshot and send it to you so you can see it later.
All right, that sounds good. Yeah.
But yeah, and so we're nearing it looks like, let me see here, we're nearing the 50-minute mark. So super excited for UFC 251, but also issues that have been happening that did directly impact this card actually are things with some of the biggest stars talking about their contracts, retirements, and more money, obviously. And the first person I'll reference is Jorge Masvidal, who was supposed to fight Kamaru Usman for the welterweight title at this event. The UFC had been circling that for a while. Masvidal expressed concerns about wanting to get out of his contract, such like that. And then Dana White told him, okay, fine, we won't schedule you for your title fight that you were going to have. So good on Uncle Dana for that. Conor McGregor retired, which I just laugh at. That whatever. He went from wanting to fight 3 times this year to retiring, so it makes sense. The one that's more serious, I think, because we have seen it happen before, is John Jones with money walking away again and saying that, especially for him, he has nothing else to prove in that light heavyweight division. So I think these 3 are very separate cases, as Masvidal just broke out. Conor's Conor, so he just wants to do what he does. And then John Jones, obviously, like I said, just being the undisputed light heavyweight GOAT, but also, up there with the top 5 fighters across genders and all time. What'd you make of all these things kind of happening at the same time? Because at one point you could just kind of umbrella them and be like, UFC's having issues with its main fighters. Or you can also look at it, it's like, well, I feel like these are 3 kind of separate things that may be tangentially related to the pandemic issues.
I mean, this is something I could ramble on about for a little bit, so I'll try to keep it short. I've heard Dana on 2 different podcasts and on post-fight press conferences getting asked these questions. And the simplest way he broke it down right now was that these fighters are free to leave whenever they want. On their contracts, they're a minimum of 3-fight contract. The UFC has to offer the fights. The fighters do not have to take these fights. We are in the middle of a pandemic with COVID still going on, whether it's real or fake or wherever your conspiracy theories may lie on that issue. But nonetheless, no fans are allowed in, which takes away from the gate. So they can't. So that's concessions, that's tickets, that's merch that goes into it. The UFC still has to pay all its staff, which they have been during this whole pandemic. And I don't know, the money's just not there right now to be giving these fighters the huge paydays they want. I don't think they're ripping them off. I don't know what the exact contract states, but if we're talking about Jorge, it was really weird. A few weeks ago, he said he relinquished his title shot and he would give it to McGregor to face Usman, which he doesn't have the clout to call the shots there. Obviously, they gave that to Burns. But, yeah, that was kind of odd. I don't know. He's making big money off of his tequila or his vodka brand. So maybe he's getting a little cocky with it, realizing he doesn't have to get beat up for less money. And if he doesn't get offered what he wants, he can just walk away from it. I don't know if he's just mouthing off. Maybe once we get fans back, they'll be able to schedule him a fight with a bigger payday. As far as McGregor goes, this is his 2nd or 3rd time retiring. I think he retired before the Nate Diaz stuff happened, and now he's retiring again. It's a McGregor issue. We don't have to explain it. It's just Conor. That's what it is right there. It's just Conor. So I don't know about him. And then the Jones has worked through everybody in that division. There are a few names he could rematch with, but nonetheless, he's already beat those names. I think he was just looking for a big money fight with Francis Ngannou, and right now, the UFC's not in the position to earn that big money, and I don't even would be willing to. Interested in it. there's ways that the heavyweight division can go, especially with Stipe and DC being paired up again. Once that happens, that'll open up the floodgate for another championship, which very well could involve Ngannou. So to put him against Jones right now and risk him possibly getting hurt to Jones, something crazy happening, it's not worth it for the UFC.
Yeah, and especially when, excuse me, you could reasonably guess that Stipe and DC, who are fighting for the third time, the trilogy on August 15th, that was also announced to be headlining UFC 252, that they both just might retire afterwards, that Ngannou wouldn't have to wait the 3 or 4 months for that title fight, whoever would win that fight, to recover to challenge again. Now, I mean, we know DC's retiring. He's already said that. Stipe hasn't said it yet, but it's been reasonably inferred. So that, you could have a interim heavyweight championship with Ngannou. He would definitely get it. Against who? I'm not exactly sure. But he would definitely get that, and it could be the next month if they wanted to. So, to me, I feel like there is no reason for Ngannou to want to do something with John Jones, because, I mean, I don't think... We haven't seen John Jones at heavyweight, right? DC came down to light heavyweight, if I'm correct, for their fights.
Yeah, DC was always a light heavyweight contender. Well, he was heavyweight. Then he switched down to light heavyweight at one point. It was because he did not want to fight... Oh, shoot. I can't remember. One of his training partners, I can't remember if it was Verdum or not, when Verdum was big. I don't know. I think he just chose that they didn't want to fight each other, so Cormier came down, but now he is back up to heavyweight. Jones was never at heavyweight. Yeah, I don't know. That fight, it'll be interesting. Depending on how much damage the winner of that fight takes, maybe they stay in there to give us Ngannou versus Stipe fight number 2, or a Ngannou versus Cormier fight, which would be an interesting one to do. Cormier doesn't get knocked out very easily. We've seen it happen to him by Jones via head kick. But we've also seen him take punches from Rampage Jackson and still ended up submitting Jackson in that fight. So, and his skill set is unbelievable. He's seen Stipe beat Francis with takedowns, and DC's a better wrestler than Stipe is, so maybe he would steal that out of his playbook. But right now, I think that's looking too far ahead. The loser probably definitely retires between those two, just because they're both getting a little older. Stipe's had some injuries happening with his eye and everything. So that, right. And yeah, there's nobody else. I don't know who let's say they both retire. I don't know who unifies that belt with Ngannou. I know Blades is fighting upcoming, as we've already touched on. Maybe Blades again? But I don't know. It would just, it's kind of awkward there once you get out of the top 3 names. Or I should say the championship and then the 2. So that'd be DC and Ngannou and Stipe. After that, I don't know where you would go from there if DC and Stipe were to step down.
Yeah, I don't know. Like having Derek Lewis in that fight, I don't know, just doesn't feel right. So unless Blades, destroys Volkov coming up, I really don't know where else you got to go with that. So
maybe after that you do put a Jones versus Ngannou super fight together. Let the heavyweight division work itself out in the meantime. Let the light heavyweight division work itself out while those two are fighting, and then. Yeah, if they were to do that fight, let the other fighters work themselves out in that division, then we could be lining up for a nice heavyweight and light heavyweight championship at that point.
Right, for sure. So yeah, we'll have to definitely keep an eye out. There's a lot of great fighters right now, and a lot of them have just been waiting, for the U.S. restrictions to open up, and other countries as well. But now we solved that problem with Fight Island and such. So. Definitely going to be getting these fights. I know there's going to be 4 cards or 3 cards in 2 weeks, or 4 cards in 2 weeks at
4.
Fight Island. 4, okay, starting with the 11th. So that's going to be we're going to get some of these guys to be active again, and girls as well, and get some of these rankings figured out, because there's a lot of movement right now. There's a lot of fluid situations and a lot of rumored fights that were confirmed before will be. Happen again. Real quick, rapid fire. So for the 3, Who fights this year out of those three, if any do? Who do you think?
Oh, wow. Okay, rapid fire out of those three. It wouldn't be a shock if Conor came back out of retirement again, but we'll go with Masvidal. I'll say Masvidal may be the one to fight again.
Yeah, I definitely think Conor's gonna be back. Like he'll be fighting in August, or maybe not on that pay-per-view because of Stipe, or maybe they would. I don't know. Just to boost it, but I feel like he's definitely back in August. Or I know they've been talking about Khabib, Gaethje unification fight in September. So I mean, Dana would just show Conor who's boss, but putting him on the co-main on that card, be like, this is where you're at right now. You still have to
drop it down. That'd be great. That would be a Dana move.
So I think he's back. I don't know about Masvidal's weird because that welterweight division. I mean, who knows who could he fight? Leon Edwards, Wonder Boy. Now that Usman will need some time off after July, so that's a little trickier. And I think John Jones could walk away for a year. And I mean, we've seen it before. And the way he's gone, I mean, he's fought 11, 12 title fights and lost none of them. He just come back and take the belt from whoever had it anyway, and or whoever won it in his absence. And that's how that goes in the light heavyweight division for the last 10 years.
Exactly, and that wouldn't be a surprise. I like what you said about Masvidal. Leon Edwards was an argument to be in the running for the championship for the belt. So he is he's been active, and yeah, he's up there. So Masvidal versus Edwards would be a good one, or even Masvidal versus Covington.
Yes.
I mean, just
goodness,
trash talking gangsters going at. I think it'd be similar to what we saw with Usman versus Covington.
And especially too because Leon Edwards, that was the first card that was canceled, I believe, because of Corona, was him fighting Tyron Woodley in a fight night main event. So
That's cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. UFC is it's gonna be a lot of fun coming up. I can't wait to get this test out of the way and then just fully immerse. And all the stuff that definitely go against what I've been taught in medicine and pre-med classes.
Yeah, you're here to do no harm, and here you are watching people just get harmed up and down. That's great.
That's what I love when they bring in the doctors like that. Doctors like, yeah, he passes my test, I guess. Maybe.
Like, for a standard person, you're pretty messed up. You shouldn't be walking around, but this is a case like, big deal. You're good to go.
Yeah.
July will be an exciting month. Like we said, 4 fights in 2 weeks. The 11th, the 15th, which is a Wednesday, the 18th, which is the Saturday, and then a week after that on the 25th, they're back as well. So 4 fights or 4 fight cards in 2 weeks. Another exciting time to be a UFC fan.
We'll definitely do a pod, probably breaking down 251 before that, and just throwing out some picks maybe that week before, once I do some more film study after my real studying is over. We'll definitely do that.
To me, this is the real studying because I'm not in college anymore and I'm not trying to become a doctor, but I understand where you're coming from, so we'll let you slide.
Thank you for your acceptance into the community. I appreciate it.
Something I did want to mention, I forgot to on your previous comments. I think it's going back to the live gate again. With a name like Conor McGregor, there's so much money that stands to be made or lost with or without an audience. And putting him in a fight without an audience would surely get the largest pay-per-view buy ever in all of sports probably. But you're losing out on the sold-out 25,000, 30,000 fan arena that comes along with Conor. And I don't know, with the money he asked for, because he's not going to go fight for pennies. He's selling, his whiskey is one of the top selling whiskeys in the world.
Not good whiskey, by the way.
That's what I hear. I haven't tried it yet. I'm glad I haven't. So a shitty whiskey is a great selling whiskey, though. He's also, it's just, he'll be asking for a big payday to fight. and the UFC probably can't afford it with the pandemic, the no audience, the no merch sales, the no concession sales. And that's what we touched on before as to why these fighters aren't getting paid the big numbers right now. There's big fights to be made, just not the payday to go with it.
Right. I just feel like it's tough, too, because you have to think... I mean, with Fight Island, I don't know if there's any rules with crowds in Fight Island or what they built for that. Certainly not the capacity of MGM or something like that here in Vegas. So it's just, I guess it's a game of when are they actually going to allow some semblance of fans into places. And it depends. If you're thinking it's going to be September, then I think that makes sense to wait to book Conor. If it's December, I don't think that makes much sense. And I get what you're saying, that, like, you know, with the cost, like, it's just the amount of money coming in versus the money going out to the fighters. But, I mean, if you're going to shelve Conor for that long, I think at least, you know, the amount of money he's asking for, I mean, in using that pay-per-view money to get a lot of exposure maybe to other fighters. Like, if you paired, for instance, I know Shevchenko is injured right now, but if you paired her next title fight with a Conor pay-per-view, because Shevchenko's awesome. People aren't going to buy, though, a Shevchenko alone pay-per-view. The only woman who really does that right now is Nunes. Jean Weili's getting there, but obviously that division's loaded. So I feel like if you do something like that where you have a stacked card where you and I are like, oh my goodness, this is incredible, but for the main people, you just put Conor on it, you know, I wonder if that's the move, and that way that kind of spells it forward, because Conor wanted to fight 3 times this year, and obviously Conor didn't see a pandemic happening. If he did, that'd be incredible to be a UFC fighter and also a leading futurist. But I just I think, you know, if it just depends on, I guess, on your timeline, and nobody knows, of course. So I'm not saying the UFC is wrong or not. I'm just saying it depends if the line of thinking is we're gonna get fans in MGM by September, and we're gonna book Conor in October. Great, I get it. Makes complete sense. I would do the same thing. Let Dan Hooker and Poirier fight. Let the rankings shift a little bit in that division. Let Khabib and Gaethje get their thing going. Give Conor one more fight, then maybe if he wins, give him a title shot against whoever. Fine, I get it. But if you're waiting till December, that doesn't make any sense to me. Do you know what I mean?
I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I think the money, I don't know. I'm just going off what I heard Dana said, and I'm trying to interpret it. And Conor is just such a large draw, and yeah, it will be big UFCs, and maybe if it does come out where fans won't be allowed back until December or whatever, then yeah, maybe do some huge card like that with Conor on it. Let's get some other big names. By that time, you could probably get another 2 or even 3 championship fights on one card just to help upsell the pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Even though you'd be asking for a lot of pay-per-views, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be impossible to make up that concession merch. And from the business standpoint, I don't know. I don't know the stats. I don't know the analytics on it, the money in, the money out, the views in, and how it goes. It's just hard to say. But it's also hard to say because Conor pulls this shit all the time. It's kind of what he's done this year. I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out. What are you, Conor? Make up your mind, bud.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see what happens with that. And you're right. If the money's not there, it's just not there for Conor or John Jones or some of these other guys. So, it's more opportunity for some other guys to come in and hopefully make names for themselves over this wild era we are in right now. But yeah.
Yeah, the amount of fights that we've been able to see during this, it's exposed a lot of fighters. It's got their name out there. I know Ray Borg is fighting again. Is it this weekend?
It might be.
If it's this weekend, but Ray Borg has a fight coming up, which he just fought 2 cards ago, or 3 cards ago. So he's staying active. We mentioned how we saw, his name's already slipping my mind, but he's fought, the guy we talked about earlier has fought.
Oh, Kelleher.
Yeah, Kelleher has fought already twice. Both Burns brothers, I think, have fought twice, or at least Gilbert's fought twice, 3 times this year, 2 during the pandemic. I mean, it's good. This slowdown's kind of good because it's getting younger, newer names out there, getting them some ring experience. So when they do have their next fight, in front of a crowd. They'll be able to bring it. They're not going to be dealing with the nerves. And it's just going to create an overall better environment inside of the Octagon.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So, lots of talent, lots of fights to watch. Even if you don't watch tomorrow, it's okay. Just come back to it in 8 days, for sure.
Exactly.
So, Ryan, thank you for coming on. It was an awesome pod again, and I can't wait to break down 251 with you when we get a little bit closer to it. So, be counting down the days.
Thanks for having me. My calendar's already marked. I'm happy to be a part of this. This is fun. I really enjoy it. I just can't believe how fast the time goes while doing these.
It does. It's crazy. So, yeah, thank you again.